G'day, Michael here. I've been looking online at StatCounter, just curious as to make sense of how they count the different statistics as far as which operating systems are being used. Now here's the website. Now you can see the Windows is the top blue line. It's declining steadily from, this goes back to like 2009 and near 100% deployment basically, to around about 65, 66% now. I mean, there's the old joke, this is the year of the Linux desktop. Well, this might actually be the tipping point where everything happens at once. Now, the trouble is with these statistics, I think they've done a fairly good job of collecting the information from about 2009 to nearly the end of 2025, so it's very current. We've got Windows, OS X, Unknown, Linux, Chrome OS, iOS, and other. Windows, that includes all versions of Windows. Could be XP, could be Windows 7, could be Windows 10, 11, which is a fair thing. It's a reasonable representation of the truth. But here we have the other operating systems, for some reason split up. Now, Mac OS and OS X, one is really a replacement for the other. So I think it's fair to put Mac OS and OS X together if you're going to put all the Windows together. That would be a reasonable thing to have a fair idea what the Apple market share is on the desktop. And I've put Unknown and Linux in the same lot. So here we've got them separated, Linux and Unknown, but I've also made a column here, Linux plus Unknown, Mac OS plus OS X. I think they're fair to put together because I'd be surprised if the unknowns aren't 90-something% Linux. Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to put the two together. And if you think that's a fair thing also, then you may read this chart the same way I am. You can see this red line on this particular chart, which has got Linux and Unknown put together. This yellowish line is Mac OS plus OS X, which represents the Apple. The strong blue line is Windows. So it's all Windows, whether it's XP, 98 or whatever, anything that's on the internet, whatever they can find, combined together. So I think it's a fair way of looking at it. Otherwise, we want to split up the Windows into Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows XP, Windows 7. Apparently, there's still a lot of Windows 7 out there, maybe. But in any case, we're calling them Windows. But there's also bots that are doing trawling of the internet as Windows 7 will be counted as a Windows 7 thing. So it'll be counting the Windows line. So a lot of those are Linux servers running, these trawling tools, whatever. Windows 7 is served simpler websites. I think this is a fairly good thing to have all the Windows put together and realise there are actually fewer of those than is counted here because of those trawling, those trawling functions. I don't know how much of the Unknown is Linux, but I expect it to be mostly. I doubt that there's much else. And the Mac OS and OS X are probably pretty truthful numbers, as truthful as they can be. A lot of browsers do pretend to be from another operating system. Typically, on a Linux environment, you may actually have the browser pretending to be a Windows-based client. So some of the Windows here may actually also be Linux. So it's a bit hard to get exactly perfect numbers. But in any case, that makes me think this Linux plus Unknown number might actually be larger because of those pretending to be Windows. Also, those website trawlers also pretending to be Windows may make Windows look stronger. But I mean, those trawlers shouldn't even be turning up on the desktop environment. But if the system is pretending to be a Windows machine, then it'll show up on the desktop. So these numbers, there will be some distortion in these numbers, and I can't control for that, and neither can anyone else. Alright, so what can we read from this? If you look at the Mac OS, it's been actually pretty solid, pretty steady. The trend, if you put a simple trend line on there, would be very much an upward gradient. The trend on the Microsoft, very clearly a downward gradient. And the Linux plus other, very noisy, but in any case, you can see, if anything, there's an acceleration here. So you sort of got beginning of an S-curve. It's the way I'm reading this. And that's what happens when you have a tipping point and there's an adoption of something. There's very little, then a slight increase, then all of a sudden, boom, up it goes. And then as you get closer to saturation, it goes back to a flatter line, obviously, as it fills out. So this could be the point where I'd say, based on that curve, just visually to me, if that's 25 and that's 24 here, so about this point here is 2024. This is 2025. 2026, I would be reading that curve coming up something like here, or something like this. So I would imagine a transition point looking at this could be, say, 2028, where Microsoft and Linux trade places as to who's top dog. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. I'm sure that Valve doing their thing has added a lot of credibility in people's mind as to what Linux can do. And I mean, I'm doing this on a Linux machine that it's made for Windows 7. Supposedly it can't run Windows 11, but I have another machine of the same kind. It's a Dell T7500, dual Xeon machine. I think this one, what's its memory? Okay, so you can see here, T7500. Oh, this one's got 192 gigabytes of RAM, so it's pretty potent. It's got an RX 580 and two Xeons, 5675, so it's not their fastest, not the fastest CPU I've put in here. But in any case, it's over 3 gigahertz. It's a very capable machine. And it's very good at running virtual machines because it's got the large number of cores, large amount of RAM. So, very capable machines. And Linux lets us use that off into the future. But Windows 11 would ban me from using this thing. So there's a lot of advantages to using Linux. It means you don't have to throw away perfectly good computers, perfectly powerful computers. Well, I guess that's it. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, ask a question, leave a comment. Bye for now.